I framed my good-for-nothing husband, and I sent him to jail, where he belongs. But a lot of people in the comment section are saying I did the wrong thing. I'm gonna let you guys judge it. Here's my story. Men are so deceptive. At the beginning of your relationship/marriage, they tell you all the nice things that you want to hear. They promise you the world, they tell you lies, they lead you on and on and on. When it feels like you're finally trusting them, they betray your trust, cheat on you, and stab you in the back with a dull butcher knife. I loved my husband Chris so much. We went through a lot together, and I never imagined that he would cheat on me, but in the end, my worst nightmares became a reality. Before I proceed to tell you all what happened and why I did what I did, I'll tell you all and how it all started, so permit me a bit to go down memory lane. Chris and I were college sweethearts. I met Chris in college as a freshman, and he was in his third year. You all know how college is as a freshman. You have a long bucket list to tick off things to explore, and the number of guys you want to date before you finally settle down. Well, I ticked a couple of things off my bucket list and explored to a level, but I never got to date multiple hot guys, because Chris came into the picture. The first time Chris and I met was at a house party, and we clicked so easily. Well, although I was slightly drunk and I kept throwing myself at him, he did not take advantage of me in the way I expected. He was more of a shy, reserved guy who seemed like he was dragged by his friends to attend the house party, and he did not mingle as much as his friends did. 2 days after the house party, I bumped into Chris in school, and he recognized me immediately. Honestly, I remembered his face the minute our eyes met, but I wanted to avoid him because I was so embarrassed at the things I tried to do with him that night. Being Chris, he must have figured out I was trying to avoid him, and that's why he told me to forget about all that stuff that happened at the house party. After we introduced ourselves properly, I knew I wanted to hang out with him again. So we exchanged contacts and promised to hang out. A week after we bumped into each other in school, we fixed our first date properly, and it turned out to be one of the best dates I ever had as a teenager. We got along pretty well, and surprisingly, we had a lot in common. Our taste in food and music was almost similar, and everything felt like it was a perfect match made in heaven. In less than a month of getting to know Chris, we fell madly in love with each other, and we started dating. And because of this relationship, I did not have the opportunity to date as many men as I wanted, because Chris was perfect in all areas. He was caring, he was encouraging, he was good in bed, and he knew how to always make me feel like a woman. Even as a teenage girl who did not know so much about life and relationships, I promised myself that I would never cheat on Chris or make him feel like he was competing with another man for my attention. We promised each other that we would always remain faithful to one another. And for our remaining years in college, I kept that promise. I shut all the other guys out and never did anything that would hurt old Chris or our relationship. By the time I got to my final year of college, Chris was already done with college, and thankfully, about a year later, he was able to get a good-paying job. By this time, I had moved in with him so we could start building our future, and both our families knew about our relationship. You see, his job came as an answered prayer, because I knew how terrible things were for us. I even had to work 2 jobs. Yep. Coupled with the stress of college, so we would not really sleep on the streets or beg for food. And the oldest son of his family, he was always caring for his ill mother, and 2 younger sisters, so things were not easy for him. There were times that he was discouraged from applying for many jobs, because he did not get any response or make it to the second interview stage. But I just kept encouraging him and continued to push him. So when he finally got a job with good pay, you can imagine how excited and relieved I was. We'd been waiting for a miracle for a very long time, and it came. The only thing I did not know was that this miracle I've been praying for would become a threat to our relationship. I think 2 to 3 months after Chris started his new job, he began to change. Not change in a good way, but in a bad way. He began to stay out very late at night, and whenever he returned, he would claim that he was tied up at work, or he had to cover for his colleagues at work. Well, it was always the same excuse every night, and it was gradually tearing our relationship apart. A lot of times I would go through so much to make special dinner for us. so we could make up for the lost moment, and, he would return home hours after the food had gone cold. As if that was simply not enough, guys. He would come home late and still just stay on his phone, leaving me to feel neglected. Because of this, our intimacy life dropped. Our conversation started feeling forced, and everything else was just not the way it used to be. When I simply could not take it anymore, I talked to one of my girlfriends, who we had been buddies since our freshman days, and she hinted either Chris was working his butt off as he claimed he was, or girl, he's cheating on me. Well, sincerely, I chose to believe that Chris was working his butt off, not cheating on me, because finding out that he was cheating on me, it would destroy all my years of commitment that I gave to him. So, after I met with my friend, for days I tried to fight off the voices in my head that screamed, Chris is cheating on you, Chris is cheating on you, until I could no longer fight off the voices. So one night when Chris came home very late as usual, I did not even show any remorse for keeping me up. I decided that I've had enough, and I went through his phone while he slept. Prior to that time, I had never gone through his phone, because I didn't have a reason to, guys. What I saw on Chris's phone, oh boy, it broke my heart. He's been flirting with a female colleague of his work, and I found out the reason he always returned home late was because he would hang out with her for hours after work, and they would be spending all this quality time together. I know many ladies claim that when they find out their spouse is cheating on them or flirting with another woman, they play along and not confront him, but I would not be one of those. I just couldn't. My heart had shattered into 1,000 pieces, and I could not hold back the tears. In anger, I woke him up and asked him to explain all the flirty conversations I'd seen on his phone. When he woke up, at first, he played dumb, then acted mad that I've gone through his phone without his permission, but when he realized that he had messed up, he begged for my forgiveness and promised to stay away from the lady and cut all contact with her. I'll admit, it was painful to find out that the man I love so much would lay down with another woman. Well, I would go as far as cheating on me and spending quality time with another woman almost every night, while leaving me at home all alone to a cold meal. But as the love-struck puppy that I was, I thought of the long way that we've come, all the challenges that we've overcome together, and I forgave him because I believed he would never do anything like that again. How stupid. Well, let's say, after the night I went through Chris's phone, he became changed man, with no nagging, no complaints or arguments from his end. He just changed completely, just like that. He no longer stayed out late at work, and he would buy me flowers on his way home. He would just take me on fancy dates and shopping, and we began to spend more quality time together. In fact, I always looked forward to our weekends because I knew how much fun it would be. I knew he was doing all of that just to win back my heart, and they all worked. Also, our intimate life improved, and a lot of other things improved too. We never talked about the lady again, and he made me believe that he cut all non-work-related talk with her. Then he blocked her on all their mutual social media platforms. With everything back at the way it used to be between us later that year, Chris popped the question after so many years of us being together, and I said yes. We had a beautiful wedding, and we were so excited to start a family. While we were dating, Chris used to talk about wanting kids, and he always imagined a long dinner table with at least 3 beautiful children gracing our table. I wanted kids too. Just that I was fine with 2 kids, but I never argued about the number with Chris. Also, we'd already decided that we would wait for 2 years before we started to have kids, and that's exactly what we did. From the 3rd year of our marriage, I tried so much to get pregnant, but nothing was forthcoming. We tried in the 3rd year, the 4th year, the 5th year, and even the 6th, but nothing. At all. I would miscarry from the 3rd month and continued like that for years. Now, I won't pretend I did not know why I had these issues with conceiving or keeping a baby in my womb. I did, and Chris knew it too. While we dated, I had terminated a pregnancy thrice, and the last one nearly took my life. I literally saw death, but I overcame it. My last termination came with a lot of complications, and the result of that was my inability to hold a fetus in my womb to the extent of giving birth. After trying for 6 years, Chris and I began to explore the options of adopting a baby. It wasn't what I originally planned for us, but it was one of the best options we had. While all of this was happening, we were also growing in our different careers, and Chris was doing so well. He'd been promoted to the head of the new branch of his organization in the 6th year of our marriage, and this was a big one for us, guys. We literally had everything we wanted, but the only thing that was missing was a baby. Throughout the 5+ years of marriage, Chris was kind to me, and he supported me in every manner that he could. He never once blamed me for our inability to have a child, and even used to say that he was satisfied with having just me as family. Chris's constant support helps me throughout my depression. Trust me, having multiple miscarriages, it takes a mental toll on you. No matter how strong you think you are, Chris was the main reason I kept going, and he knew that. But from the time he got promoted to head of the new branch of his organization, just like that, he changed. He began to return home very late again, would go to the whole day without checking on me or returning my calls, and he began to complain a lot. The things he used to ignore before began to make him mad, and the slightest provocation, he would yell at me. Well, one day, we had a nasty argument because of his sudden change, and in the heat of the argument, he called me barren. He said he wasn't sure that he was the one that got me pregnant thrice, and that I must have slept with other men, terminated the baby, and made him suffer for my sins. In my wildest dreams, guys, I would never, ever imagine that Chris would talk to me like that. It was so heartbreaking to hear that from him after all the sacrifices I've made. The worst was after we had that argument, he walked out on me. Did not come home for 3 days. Words can't really describe how horrible I felt for days and how I nearly drowned in depression if it weren't for my friend's support. Well, before Chris even spoke to me like that, I'd been seeing possible signs that he was cheating on me. But I chose not to believe it. But after that day's incident, I was sure that he was up to something, so I decided to do a little investigation. Long story short, one evening, with the help of some people, I tracked Chris's down to a restaurant, and what I saw broke my heart. He was there with the same lady he was flirting with years ago. Years! And they were cuddling, feeding each other spaghetti. I won't lie. I made a scene, and I was so mad at Chris for cheating on me again with the same woman after he promised to cut contact with her years ago. When Chris saw me and the people I was with, he claimed that he was only here as a friend and business partner, and they had to come to discuss business. Guys, LOL. You all should have seen how convincing he looked. I didn't believe him, obviously. Only a blind fool would. As you can imagine, he came home to beg me again. He apologized for all the terrible things that he said to me, and he asked me to give him one more chance to make it right. Wow. I was hurt so badly that I could not get it off my mind, but I decided to play along and act like I had forgiven him. Thankfully, he fell for my act and believed everything was back to normal. But it wasn't. I was still so mad at him, and that's why I framed him so he could also feel what I felt. Yeah, I framed him. A couple days after his grand apology, I planted a big bag of marijuana right inside of his car while he was preparing to hang out with his friends that evening, and I, well, how do I say this? Anonymously called the police on him, and, well, as soon as he drove away, since carrying the amount of marijuana I put in there is very illegal here, he was arrested for it, and he spent 2 years in jail for something he had no idea about. You see, we still live in a very strict state here in the South, and it's illegal. The amount I put in the car, they considered it trafficking. That's why he got 2 years. Well, anyways, it was just my way of paying him back for all the sacrifices I made for him that he took for granted. Now, the thing is, all of this happened 2 years ago, and now Chris is out of jail. We divorced while he was in jail, and I thought that would be the last time I've seen him. But now I recently found out that Chris is in a relationship. Are you ready for this? With my younger sister, Kara. And they have just announced their wedding, and guys, I have a gut feeling that he's back to avenge me for what I did to him, and he wants to use poor Kara to do it. Well, the confusing part. Kara knows about the history with Chris, his infidelity, and how he cheated on me. but she's been dating him without my knowledge despite knowing everything I had said to dissuade her from marrying Chris. She's still hell-bent on marrying him. Kara claims Chris is a changed man, and he loves her so much. Oh, please! I know what a leopard does. It doesn't change its spots. I decided to hire a private investigator to follow Chris around, even though it was just a few weeks to their wedding. And just to show you all how much I knew Chris, my PI caught him going out with another woman on a different occasion. When I told Kara about her fiancé's infidelity and the woman he was going out with, she was so mad and wanted to confront him right away. The good thing is, I've been able to calm her down, and we made a plan to frame Chris for domestic violence. We're gonna get him again. Our plan is for me to tell everyone on their wedding day how Chris has been abusive to Kara, and Kara will vouch my statement. You see, she's even promised to lie so Chris can get punished. Once we do that, we'll call the police on him and he'll be taken away. I know this doesn't sound good, but I can fold my hands and watch my younger sister get used to Chris's selfish reasonings. The Chris I know would do anything to make sure that he gets what he wants. And if using Kara to get to me is a way of getting his revenge, then he won't mind doing it. I know this has ruined my sister's wedding and all of her excitement, but it's all in her best of interest. Their wedding is only in 2 weeks, and by the time 2 weeks is up, Chris will be back in jail, where he belongs. Because he cannot keep his hands to himself. Wink, wink. So tell me, guys, am I the a-hole for ruining my sister's wedding so I can save her tears and betrayal in the future? Am I the a-hole also for framing Chris twice? And I'm going to do it again. I look forward to your comments and suggestions, guys. Thank you so much. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story is one of the wildest ones we've covered in quite some time, and the reason I say this, well, not only did OP just admit to doing a crime, well, we get the little inside scoop from Chris. That's right, the next post that I found came out 3 years later, and guys, this one is from Chris's perspective. Hit that subscribe button, buckle up your seatbelt, and let's take a look at Chris's perspective. Update number 1. Hey guys, I know it's been 3 years since Carol made this post, and you must all be wondering why she never responded to any of your comments or suggestions. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Chris. You know, Carol's ex-husband, the same person she framed, and it cost me 2 years of my life in jail. A friend of mine stumbled upon the post, and he could not help but recognize uncanny resemblances between what happened to me and everything that Carol shared in the post. Well, he was pretty convinced that Carol made this post, and he forwarded it to me. After I read it, I knew I had to come and make these updates and clarify some things, even though 3 years has passed by. I'd say 90% of you at least have forgotten about the story. I'd like to start by saying Carol was not really the person she portrayed herself to be. She was an obsessed, insecure woman who tried so hard to control my life. Concerning the part of the story where she said that I was flirting with my colleague from work. Well, you know what? I will admit, I had something like that going on with an ex-colleague of mine named Judy. You see, Judy was a very intelligent, active woman, and I was attracted to her intelligence. Judy and I used to hang out a lot after work, and what we had was not really a relationship or me cheating on Carol per se. It was just two consenting adults spending time with each other. Honestly, after Carol found all the chats between Judy and me, I did cut all contact with Judy, as I promised Carol. At work, I literally avoided her, and it continued like that until she was transferred to a different branch. It's quite funny that Carol did not mention that part where she woke the neighbors up at night while her yelling and throwing stuff out of the house and threatened to burn it. In fact, the reason I even got involved with Judy at work was because Carol kept pushing me away. And Judy gave me the peace of mind I wanted. I know it was not enough reason for me to hurt her like that, but what happened happened. Carol was just too passive-aggressive and possessive, and she would not let me be. I'd barely worked for a year, and she was already pressuring me to buy a house so that she could keep up with her friends whose husband already bought them a home. If it weren't the things that she wanted me to buy, she would nag and complain about everything. It got to the point where I could not take it anymore. So, I tried my absolute best to be a good husband to that woman, but nothing I did was ever good enough. She mentioned that I said she must have gotten pregnant for other men, right? Well, you know what? Carol is a snake. I never said such a thing to her and never would. The reason she thought I said that was because she was always referring to the termination of the pregnancy that she had and blamed me for her inability to hold a child. I don't even want to remember all that, because whenever I do, it hurts me like it happened yesterday. I just wanted to let you guys know that Carol was not exactly who you all thought she was. There's always two sides to a story, and this is mine. Update number 2. Hey guys, I see all your comments. Honestly, I did not think this post would even get attention. It's been a week, especially since the real post was made 3 years ago, and I decided to look at it today and was so surprised to see your comments. So, most of you asking about the lady Carol claimed she met me at the restaurant and how I handled things when she framed me. Well, first I'll admit that I was guilty as charged. When I got promoted to a head of the new branch of the organization I worked for, I was surprised to see Judy there too. Our organization had handpicked the best in our field and they put us together to grow the new branch. This was the same time Carol began to complain that I was changing. I didn't even know I was changing or my attitude towards Carol changed. All I knew was that working again with Judy rekindled a fire I quenched. We started hanging out, but did not really do anything together. We were really just quite close and all, but we never did anything. So when Carol showed up with her team of Ghostbusters, and she made a scene at the restaurant, I realized how much I have hurt her again. And I swore I would never make her feel that way ever again. So I returned home to beg her, as she said, and I sincerely believe that she forgave me. She said that she's forgot and just straight up forgave me and did not show any sign of anger or hurt after that day. Maybe if she had, I would not have stopped begging her. Now to the part where she framed me up. The night I was on my way to hang out with my buddies when the police started tailing me. They made me pull over and claimed that they received information from an anonymous caller that I was carrying something illegal. I was so shocked that I even argued with them that I had nothing in the car. To be sure, the police officers asked me to come down, so they could thoroughly search my car, and I did. As soon as I stepped down in my presence, one of the officers went to the back seat and he pulled out a big bag of marijuana right there underneath my driver's seat, and I was in utter disbelief. If it weren't with them, I would have sworn one of the officers planted it there. It was just unbelievable, and I was clueless. Before I could wrap my head around what's going on, I was arrested and later jailed. It was a lot for me to take in, and it was around the same time that Carol announced that she wanted a divorce. It took me a while to figure out that she had something to do with what happened to me, but there was nothing I could do to prove it, so I ended up staying in jail for almost 2 years, for something I had no idea about. Final update. Guys, I want to thank you so much for all the comforting comments. I've read everything. So, in this update, I'll address the questions you've been asking about Kara and Carol. The truth is, I sincerely loved Kara, and I still do. So far, we've been married for 3 years now, and our marriage has been amazing. I fell in love with her back when I was in prison, and for those of you asking, I can't really explain when our love story started, but all I know is that Kara always visited me when I was in jail, and she believed I was innocent. So, when I got out, we started dating officially, and we deliberately kept our relationship at wraps. You know, from Carol until we were ready to tie the knot. I'll be honest, I originally wanted to use Kara to get back at Carol, but on getting to know and connect with Kara better, my plan had changed. Kara and I already knew that Carol would try to ruin our relationship with her bitterness, but I just did not expect her to get to the extent of lying against me. When she tried everything to discourage her sister from marrying me and it did not work, she lied about me having an affair with another woman. Yes, that was a lie, and when Kara told me about it, well, the little plan Carol came up with, we decided to make a plan of our own. To lead Carol on, and Kara decided to play along, and she tricked Carol into confessing that she framed me the first time, without knowing that Kara was secretly recording her confession. So, on D-Day of the wedding, when Carol got to make a speech against me and frame me for domestic violence just as she planned, she did not know that she was just about to shoot herself in the leg. After Carol finished lying against me and telling all the wedding guests that I was abusive, She called on Kara to vouch for the statement, just as they rehearsed. So Kara gets on stage, but instead of lying against me as initially planned, she played a video recording of Carol, where Carol admitted that she framed me up and she was ready to frame me up again for domestic violence so I could go back to jail. Everybody was so shocked, and Carol could not hide her face in shame. She just stood there in shock at what her sister just did. Carol then attacked Kara, and they got into a fist fight where Carol would yell at her for, selling her out, but Kara stood her ground and answered Carol's each blow with her own blows. It wasn't long before the fight was stopped by police officers at the wedding, so she was arrested in front of everybody and later jailed. The reason Carol could not update this post is because she's still in jail, even as I make this update, and she will be there for a while. Though I do feel bad for her, but I think she deserves what she got. She was so heartless, and she framed me up. Because of her heartlessness, I lost 2 whole years of my life, while she walked around like a free bird. Anyways, it's all in the past now. I'm happily married to a beautiful woman, and we both have a pretty little daughter. Right now, my family is all that matters, and I will not let anyone take away my happiness. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this old post, and leave your comments. I really do appreciate it. Guys, we finally get to see another story where we see everybody's perspective, and I'm not saying what Chris was doing was right. He was obviously being deceptive, going behind his wife's back, but at the same time, did he deserve to have 2 years of his life wasted in jail, where who knows what could have happened to him, all because he went behind his significant other's back? But what she did was an actual crime, and we wouldn't have even known about it unless she admitted to it. Guys, this is the crazy part. She publicly went online and told on herself, and that's how Chris found it. That's how Chris was able to bust her and get her sent to jail for what she did. Now, I think everybody does suck in this story, but I don't know. Let me ask you guys this. Who was the worst villain in today's story? Drop it down below. I would love to hear from you guys. I couldn't imagine being put in this situation, so maybe you guys can talk about it down below, and let's just figure out who was the worst of the two. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. If you guys want to be a part of these daily story drawings, all you have to do is subscribe. I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind, guys. See ya.